I feel that the main driver for multi-big cloud, because again, if you count GitHub and everybody's using more than one, but going multi-big cloud, I think that the main driver for that are acquisitions. A company uses AWS, acquires another company who is in Azure, and then acquires another company who is in Google, right? Just as it is difficult to go from one to multiple, it is also difficult from multiple to go back to one. Simply the work is too big.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 243, looking back on our 2023 predictions. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darin and Viktor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darin reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Viktor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darin Pope and Viktor Farsic. Here we are in the last week of 2023.
You made it. I mean, there's still a day or two left, right? You never know.
Yeah, well, there's 4 days left, so yeah, in theory, we could not make it, but let's think positive. Let's go ahead and make it. For this episode, we're going to be seeing how correct we were on our predictions in the first week of this year. That episode was episode 192. One of the items that we're going to be discussing in this list helped me decide what we're going to be saying. And in fact, we're going to go ahead and start with that one. AI within software development tooling, like Copilot, GitHub's Copilot, will see increased adoption and improvement. That was one of the things that we said. And notice how I said that. I said Copilot, then I went back and corrected myself, GitHub, because Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, are copiloting all the things now.
And add ChatGPT to it and others. So we were essentially very, very wrong. It did not increase. It skyrocketed. It exploded.
Beyond exploded, I think.
Exactly. So in a way, we were wrong.
We were in the parking lot of the stadium, but we weren't in the stadium. Next week's episode is our predictions for 2024. I will go ahead and say that AI is going to be on there, but we're going to be talking a little bit differently about it. So anyway, for 2023, I think we missed. I agree with you. I think we missed. We were sort of there, but we had no idea of what was coming.
I had honestly no idea. I could not imagine that will be such a big explosion. Everybody is using it one way or another. Show me a person in our industry that never went to ChatGPT.
Never went to ChatGPT. It would have to be somebody that doesn't have internet access. And I would question if they're in our industry or not.
Exactly.
So AI, we got it wrong. Yeah, we got it wrong. That's fine. So I'm going to go back into sort of this isn't ordered by how we did episode 192. So just keep that in mind. And we're not going to go through all of them, but I want to pick out a few of them. So AI, we lost. Another one that we had was platform engineering will become a prominent trend with every company forming or building platform engineering teams.
Assuming that by every, we don't mean literally every company, because it's never every. I feel that we got that pretty right. That's all I'm hearing. Now, I'm biased, so I work with a project that is part of the solution, so maybe I'm hearing what I want to hear, but I have a feeling that that's a very, very close to the top of the list of the subjects that companies are evaluating or discussing.
I tend to agree with that. I think we're okay on this one, but I think we may jump the shark because I don't think it really ticked up as far as we thought it was going to. I think it did fine. If we're in sort of that average swim lane, that's where we're at on this one.
Yeah.
We were fine on this prediction. But I have a feeling it's going to get more interesting over the next few years. We'll leave it
Oh, yeah.
there for now. So platform engineering, I think we got right. Let me give you another one.
Okay. Shoot.
Open telemetry will become the standard for telemetry and monitoring with wide acceptance and adoption by many vendors.
I would say that that's pretty close to reality. I dare you right now. Tell me a vendor and let's Google it, and I dare you to find me one respectable that doesn't support it right now.
Oh, one respectable one? Okay, yeah, probably not. I think
I mean, that you can always find something. I know that, but respectable, let's say.
I don't think we'd find any. I think everybody is moving in that direction.
There are not many moments when standards are imposed on everybody, willingly imposed on it, or maybe not willingly, right? But when we reach the point that companies, vendors around that space, whatever the space is, some of them jump on board immediately, but almost everybody else has no choice but not to adopt it, right? Because for many vendors, it wasn't fully willingly, because they have their proprietary stuff that was in some form or another market differentiation. Oh, we have this better collector than you, and we have better format than somebody else, and so on and so forth. That's not the case anymore. It's what people ask for, right? Many vendors are forced by their customers, by their users, who are demanding OpenTelemetry. That's something we don't see often.
Anything else to say about OpenTelemetry?
It's done. It's there. It's not going away. Now there are some things missing in the spec, and some, depending on the language, some are further away than others in terms of implementation of the spec itself. Generally speaking, I think that we are, if I would rank them, I would say for most languages, metrics are here, and then tracing somewhere lower, and then logging tends to still be a bit behind. But we're getting there from the implementation perspective. And I'm not talking about the vendors like, those providing end solutions, but more like from the perspective of libraries you use to instrument your application so that you can produce stuff, data.
So we'll put OpenTelemetry. We will say we got that one close.
Yeah.
Average. Let's move on to the next one. Secure supply chain and signing will be critical with the adoption of signed artifacts and the validation of signatures throughout the process. I have a feeling that we completely missed that one.
I do. Now, let me put a note there that at least I'm basing my answers to personal experiences and communication with people and stuff like that. I don't have stats for any of the things we're talking about. But yeah, I would agree completely. I don't think that almost everybody has some conversations around it and things like that. But I don't think that we went far on that subject. I don't think it's widely really adopted.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we just didn't even get close on that one. I think it will be happening. I just don't know when now.
It's a relatively tough sell, right? Because every company is evaluating what are they going to do next. Because you're not revamping everything you have. I mean, if you do, then you're doing a silly thing, right? And it's somehow always, I feel that those things will somehow, not always, but often slip to the next quarter or whatever your planning is, right? Because developer platforms, they have potential return of investment in terms like we're going to be more productive, more autonomous. Then there is security, which is very easy to sell, but this is probably not on the top of the list of security-related subjects you want to tackle, right? I feel that it's not a priority, and I'm afraid that it might not be a priority next year either, but we'll get to that in the next episode.
Let's move on to the next one. This one you might enjoy. Kubernetes control plane usage will expand beyond container management, with vendors providing Kubernetes controllers and CRDs for managing their services.
I would say that we are somewhere not there, but it's definitely happening.
It's happening.
It's definitely happening. So AWS, and I forgot the name of the project. So AWS had something like that, their own invention. Azure as well. Google, I think that Google dropped it in the meantime for reasons beyond this podcast. So vendors are doing it. I know that VMware is doing it for a while now, starting with Cluster API, later on moving to Crossplane. So yes, I think it's happening. Now it will take time, right? It's not something that's such a big shift, especially from the user perspective, that it's going to take years, but I think we're there. Or, I mean, from the perspective of prediction of not as industry.
So we got that one okay.
Okay.
Not great, but okay. All right. About this one. There will be a growth in the adoption of services from a wide range of providers, not just the big cloud providers.
I don't think that that's maybe partial hit.
We took more damage than we got health points on that.
Yeah, I would say so, right? There are definitely new players and definitely companies challenging the big 3 or 4 if you count China. So that's definitely happening. But I have a feeling it's not widespread yet. A significant percentage of companies are focused on one big provider, whichever choice they made. Excluding, it depends how you look at it, right? Everybody's in at least 2 providers if you use GitHub, but let's ignore that for a second. No, I think that we missed that one. Or at least partially just hit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that most enterprises go beyond a single provider, big provider. Not yet.
There are 2 exceptions, or I'm not sure whether there are exceptions, but to begin with, they're all planning to do it, and they've been planning for years. But I feel that the main driver for multi-big cloud, because again, if you count GitHub, and everybody's using more than one, but going multi-big cloud, I think that the main driver for that are acquisitions. Right, a company uses AWS, acquires another company who is in Azure, and then acquires another company who is in Google. Right, just as it is difficult to go from one to multiple, it is also difficult from multiple to go back to one. Right, simply the work is too big.
That is the one use case that I think will continue to happen. I'll take it even one step further, though. Here's the worst case. It's one thing if the acquirer is provider A and the acquiree is provider B. I think what's actually even worse than that is when the acquiree is also using the same cloud provider. But the problem is the way they account structure, the way they project structure, the way they security structure. It's like, oh, they're the same. We'll just put them together. No, you're not. I think it's even worse. I would rather come from a completely different provider and get it onto my preferred provider than try to have that same preferred provider be the same as mine. That would be tough.
That's not going to happen.
No. Okay, let's pick another one here. We have just a couple more. Oh, this one's pretty good. Remote development environments will show a slower adoption rate, with many developers still preferring to use their local machines.
I have a feeling that's spot on.
Really?
I do see some increase in adoption of remote developer environments, but if I understood right, the prediction is that it will be a slow increase, right?
Correct.
I don't see everybody's now working in remote development environments, assuming that by that you mean, hey, instead of running it on my laptop, I run somewhere remotely and things like that. I don't think that that's happening in big numbers yet. So the curve is there, so it's upward. That yes, but it's not a steep one.
We still don't see that many people adopting GitHub code spaces, I think is the name of theirs, or Gitpod. People are adopting it.
Yeah, but individuals are definitely curious and trying it out. But I'm now referring more from the perspective of real adoption, big enterprises are revamping their development processes and what's not, and people are using their laptops as dumb terminals. It's happening. It's increasing. But, I don't think that that's a wildfire type of adoption.
Yeah, it's not broad market. I think the places that will adopt it first will be the tech companies, but even that I think is going to be slow.
Yes, it will be. It's going to be bigger companies, because usually smaller companies have different profiles of people and they like their stuff and they have no problem with laptop performance and no problem running Kubernetes locally and stuff like that. But when we're talking about bigger ones with more specialized people, that's the right fit for those types of tools. But they just move relatively slow. The biggest problem with that is, I feel that that's where vendors are failing very often, is identifying the buyer and the user and realizing that that's different people, right? Because developers do not necessarily wake up in the morning and say, oh, I need a remote development environment, right? They will be the users of that, but not necessarily the buyers. So I feel that that's something in a domain more of ops part of the organization. But then if it's ops part of organization, then you need to ask yourself, what's in it for them before they're the buyers. It needs to be something for them and then something for the end users as well. And that's a hard sell. Now you need to tell me whether I'm rambling some nonsensical things or no. Does that make sense?
It's our show, so you can ramble all you want. It's fine. It makes sense. If the buyers, this is sort of one of those hard things. We're stepping away from how we're talking about today of reviewing things. If you're an open source project, if you're a commercial vendor, when you're creating a product, you think you're thinking about the people actually using it, but a lot of times you're being forced into thinking about how we're going to sell it. And by the way, yes, you still sell open source projects through adoption.
Even in this context, when I say who's a buyer, I do not necessarily even think in this context in terms of exchanging money. But who is the person who is going to drive the initiative in a company for remote development environments? So think of that from that perspective when I say buyer, right? I do not necessarily think that that's a developer persona.
Not even close.
And I feel that, what we do outside of streaming and things like that, I think that our companies, our products are in a similar boat, kind of that our buyers and users are not necessarily always the same.
Okay, we've got two more.
Okay.
Next one. eBPF will begin replacing sidecars in the Kubernetes ecosystem.
If you frame it will begin, I think that that's definitely the case.
Will begin is how we had it phrased. So yes,
Yes, I think that we got that one. We're not there yet. It's not that I haven't seen a sidecar this year at all. But eBPF is probably one of the areas that exploded this year. I see eBPF everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Depends really on the area. To begin with, Cilium, which is eBPF, became the de facto standard for networking in Kubernetes. Now the project is expanding on the layers above that and things like that. So I don't have numbers in front of me, but I think that the vast majority of Kubernetes clusters are Cilium now. Running Cilium. So it's definitely there. And now it's expanding towards service mesh, which, if successful, will replace sidecars, Cilium itself. Then we have Istio, which also, remind me, I forgot the name of the project.
For which one?
The Cilium. We were commenting it not long ago. Anyways, sorry, not Cilium, Istio. What am I talking about? Istio. Istio has a eBPF-based no sidecar. Others are joining. And then I see it a lot in observability. Vast majority of projects that are promoting something or doing something are also jumping into eBPF. So it's happening, definitely. I think we were right. Did not replace majority of things, but it's happening.
And I doubt that it will ever replace the vast majority of things. It's not what it's built to do.
That's the note. Whenever we say all or majority, we mean within a reason, right?
All right, and here's the last one. There will be an emergence of a successor to GitOps because of the questions about GitOps will continue to increase and the rethinking of that model becomes necessary. I think we failed that one.
Big fail. Big fail. It's not happening. Yeah, big fail. At least I haven't heard of any serious attempt to replace it.
I was really hoping that one we would get right.
Well, that was a stretch.
It was. So how did we do? Probably about 50-50, a little bit better than 50-50 this year?
Assuming that kind of okay sounds, when you say we did this okay, counts as a win, more than 50, I think.
Okay. So what are the chances that we'll do that well for next year? Tune in next week to see where we think 2024 will head. We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.